Alright you guys, I've published an 8-hour video course on iChess. It just came out yesterday and it's called 80-20 Tactics Multiplier, the Najdorf Sicilian. What is it about? Tactical sacrifices and motives in the most dangerous and most interesting Sicilian, to me at least, it's the Najdorf Sicilian. In this 8-hour video course, I talk all about the different tactical ideas that both sides have, and it's all about improving calculation and improving this tactical vision. So even if you don't play the Najdorf Sicilian or the Sicilian, then I believe you can still benefit a lot from this course. So right now I would like to show you the introduction video of the course as well as the very first video, so you get a better impression what the course looks like. Before we begin though, I just want to point out real quick, there's a special thing going on because it just started, and for the first week only there will be a 50% discount. That means instead of $60 for the 8-hour video course, it's just $30, and this expires on Sunday the 16th December 2018. With that being said, now let's check out the preview. Hi, this is Grandmaster Nicholas Huschenbeth. I'm your instructor for this course. Welcome to 80-20 Tactics, the Najdorf Sicilian. You see, in today's day and age, people spend hours on hours on opening theory, memorizing endless variations to obtain a slight advantage from the beginning. There's one problem with this approach though. Chess games are very rarely decided in the opening. After the opening, we still have the middle game and possibly the end game, and a lot of mistakes are made in these stages of the game, decisive mistakes. And those mistakes are usually of tactical nature. You see, don't get me wrong, studying opening theory is important, but what I believe is even more important is that you know what to do and what to look for once the opening is over. I believe it is essential for you to be familiar with the most common tactical ideas in the openings you play. So you may wonder what the 80-20 in the title is all about. These numbers refer to the Pareto principle, named after Wilfredo Pareto. The Pareto principle states that for many events, 80% of the results come from 20% of the causes. Wilfredo Pareto was an Italian economist in the early 20th century, and he first found this ratio when he was looking at his P plans. He noticed that 80% of his Ps came from 20% of the P plans. And he then later found the same ratio in other situations as well. For example, 80% of the wealth is owned by 20% of the people, or 80% of the words spoken in a particular language is made up by 20% of the most frequently used words. And the same can be applied to chess too. 80% of the tactics in a particular opening involve 20% of the most frequent tactical motives. This is what this 8-hour course is all about. You are about to learn the most common tactical ideas for both colors in the Najdorf Sicilian. Now, it is important to know these ideas so you can not only play them yourself and play some beautiful sacrifices and combinations, but also to be prepared against them if you're on the other side of the board. Here's what we're going to cover in this course. First, I'm going to show you a number of illustrative games highlighting the many different tactical ideas. Then, it is your turn. You can apply what you learned by solving over 50 tactics for black and white. Afterwards, I will go over the tactics in a lot of detail, making sure that we really embed these tactical motives in your chess understanding. Alternatively, you could also do the tactics quiz first before you watch the Illustrative Games section, then watch the games and do the tactics again. This would be another way to really get these ideas into your chess system. In either case, what is most important is your participation. This is a highly interactive course, and even in the games section, I will ask you questions from time to time. The more you participate, the more you engage with the material, the more you will get out of this course. The more you will improve your tactical vision and your tactical ability in general. Are you ready? Let's begin. All Alright, welcome to the first chapter, Illustrative Games. So in this chapter I will present to you 5 model games for the white side and 4 model games for the black side. And in these games we will see the most common tactical motives and ideas for both colors. In fact, in some of the games we'll even have a combination of sacrifice and ideas, and this is going to be fun. So when you're following along, you can either do this on your computer, obviously, or additionally, you can also set up a board in front of you and play out the moves as well. This will allow you to more deeply engage with the material and also gives it a more realistic touch. But this is absolutely up to you. Also, if at any point in time you feel like it is going too fast, then just go ahead and stop the video and think about the position to really understand what is going on. Now, throughout the videos, I will ask questions time to time about what is the right move. And it is up to you to decide whether you want to do these questions, whether you want to find the right moves or not. But as I said in the introduction, the more you engage with the material, the more you become involved and think about the positions, the more you also get out of this course, and the better prepared you'll be for the tactics quiz, which is coming up as well later on. So up to you. Ready to go? Let's dive in. Welcome! In this video we're going to take a look at one of the most common and dangerous sacrifices there is for the white player in the Knight of Sicilian. We have the game Murali Karthikeyan against Gupta Saptorshi, played in the Indian Team Championship 2018. And first, let us go through the opening. With these moves, we arrive at the Knight of Sicilian. Here, after a6, we have the starting position of the Najdorf. Now, Knight b3 is a little bit of an unusual move. The point is, white is making a waiting move and wants to see how black will move his e7 pawn, whether to e6 or to e5. And after e6, which was played in the game, now white is able to play g4 as the bishop is not covering the square anymore, and this is a standard way for white to advance his pawns on the king side, as with the next push already the knight would be pushed away from f6, and later on white can follow up with h4, h5, or possibly f4, f5, and eventually get to the black king by opening up files. This is the general idea. Now bishop e7, bishop to g2, another advantage of playing g4, that the bishop can be developed to g2, knight to c6, queen e2, already hinting at the later plan of castling queenside, which makes a lot of sense since white is pushing the pawns forward on the king side. He doesn't want to put his king there, as the king will be less safe with the pawns advanced in front of him. So here white is going to castle queenside. Now queen c7 was played and bishop e3, the natural developing square for the bishop, b5. I also chose this game because it really shows the natural development for both parties, both colors, in the Sicilian. Both players are developing fairly naturally. Besides, the knight on c6 is also often seen on d7 in the Najdorf. But this is just a minor difference. Now queenside castle. Black prophylactically plays the knight back to d7 because sooner or later white will go g5 anyway and hit it. Now king b1 was played, another standard move. In the Sicilian, the king is just much better placed on b1 because there are no tactical ideas in the future along the c1 h6 diagonal, as well as on potentially the c file. We cannot see anything of this happening right now, but for the future it's just very useful to have the king on b1. It can also protect the a2 pawn. Here black went knight to b6. Of course, he also has other choices available. b4 is a move you always want to consider, but here I think Black did not like this move because of the knight a4. It is somewhat difficult to push this knight away as the knight is covering these squares, and this knight cannot come into action via c5 or b6. Another move, which would be very natural, is to move short castle, and here White would probably keep pushing with g5 and then follow up with h4, h5 and g6. This would be a standard plan to attack the Black king here, whereas in the meantime, of course, Black will also try to make something happen on the queenside. So this is a typical situation for the Knight of Sicilian, where both sides are trying to get to the opponent's king respectively first, and this subsequently can become very, very sharp. Now in the game, knight b6 was played. Typical idea to get a knight to c4, which is a very strong outpost for the knight protected by a pawn on b5. And from there are many ideas, such as exchanging the bishop on e3, as well as possible sacrificing ideas on b2 or a3. So the knight on c4 is usually a good sign for Black in this position, and here White could have played in a normal fashion like g5, rook he1, but he decided to change the nature of the position drastically. White took on b6, which is a move you're usually surprised with to see, because this bishop, this dark squared bishop by White, is a very important minor piece. You could even argue it's the most important minor piece for White in the Sicilian, as it covers the dark squares and can often be a vital part of the attack. Here though, White had something very specific in mind, and now we're getting to the typical sacrifice that White has in the Sicilian. Often we see the sacrifice after a provocation. So the sacrifice I'm talking about is knight to d5. And often we see this after Black has attacked the knight on c3. So this is why I said provocation. In this case though, and obviously this is possible as well, White does not wait for b4 to play knight d5. He goes for it right away. And I chose this game because here knight d5 is really long-term sacrifice. So sometimes you have positions where knight d5 wins pretty much on the spot. You immediately get back the material that you sacrifice, in this case the knight, and you can even continue with your attack. Now in this case, White will not regain the material right away, and he will obtain long-term compensation. We'll see this in a moment. So Black took the knight, which is his best choice, as the knight is also attacking the queen. If the queen retreats to d8, White would just take the bishop on e7 and now follow up with g5. And having taken this dark squared bishop, now the pawn on d6 is a target for the white pieces. And once again, the plan of advancing the pawns on the king side is also very decent for White, so he's clearly better here. So let us see what happened after e takes d5. Now we see the whole point behind the White idea. White takes back with the pawn, establishing a strong pawn at d5, right away attacking the knight on c6, and also we see that the e file has suddenly opened up. This is a crucial point. The e file is opened up and White can exert pressure against the king, which is still in the center, has not castled yet. So this is the main aim of knight d5, opening up the e file, and often that can even happen with check. If we imagine the bishop not being here right now, still on f8, it would come with check and even more powerful. Now, even in this case, it is quite strong, as White is pinning the bishop and can put more pressure on the bishop after the next Black move. Obviously, Black has to move the knight, otherwise White would regain material and have a structure advantage. So Black went knight to a7, which was a good move. If the knight retreats to b8, then White would follow with rook he1. This is what I was talking about, pressuring the bishop on e7. Queen d8 defends the bishop, and now g5. And notice that black cannot get away with his king. If black castles, he would just lose his extra piece and be a pawn down with a hopeless position. And after knight d7, white can go knight d4, the knight comes back into action. Actually, oftentimes you see the sacrifice already with the knight on d4, where it's much better placed, as it can go to either c6 or to f5 and further pressure the black pieces, not only a bishop on e7, but also the pawn on g7, and if it is on c6, it attacks the queen on d8 as well. Black will need to go g6, but here really white is all the time in the world. White could play f5 at some point to get f6 in. However, this has to be played with caution, since it also gives black this important square on e5. So you want to be careful with this, because if black is able to close down the e-file by putting a piece on an outpost, like here the knight on e5, it's not clear if the attack will continue. Clearly here white would still have great compensation, but it's something to do with caution. Another plan for white in this position would be to push the h-pawn forward to open up some more files against the king. And notice how stuck black is defending the bishop on e7, not being able to finish his development, as the king also needs to keep defending the bishop on e7. And really black's lacking a lot of space due to these pawns taking away a lot of squares. This is one standard theme we'll see over and over with the sacrifice, that black is really restricted, and we also see it in the game. Now after knight a7, white also followed up with rook he1. Here black was able to defend the bishop in this fashion, which is much better, since now after knight d4, black at least is able to castle. And now you might say, hold on, black has castled, he's not losing the bishop, white is just one pawn for the piece, shouldn't black be winning? But this is not the case. This is the long-term compensation I was talking about, because even here the black pieces are very much disorganized. The knight on c8 is simply terrible. It is blocking the connection of the rooks. The bishop on b7 is also limited, as it bites the pawn on d5, which is protected by the bishop. And this bishop is also not having any perspective right now, as it cannot become active due to the pawn on g5. So what is white going to do? White is still going for an attack, as long as black needing time to regroup and get his pieces into a game. Now black made a mistake, rook a7. His position is difficult to play anyway, but the best would have been to go bishop to d8, and after queen h5 to defend with g6. Here white could go forward with queen h6, trying to get f5 and f6 in, but black is actually in time to stop these threats by going knight e7 and bishop c8, and it seems that black is defending here. Another option is queen h4, once again also keeping this f5 move in mind, and black can respond by playing f5 himself, which is not a move you make lightheartedly, but in this case it is black's best option, and it seems that black can hold his own, even though white still retains good compensation, as also the e6 square has now become available to the white pieces. For example, queen h6, queen c7, at least here the queen can come to defend the position as well. And white can even follow up with something like h4, h5. There's still knight e6 in the air, and the position is quite complex, but largely unclear, and it seems that was black's best choice. After rook a7, white could have actually gone for a crushing attack right away by playing the move bishop to e4. White tried to go about it in a different fashion with rook d3, which is not as strong. So let us consider bishop e4. Now white is ready to bring more pieces into attack, and black should play a move such as g6 and now f5 right away. And I just want to show you some sample lines to show you the strength of the white attack, which might be not apparent right here. Bishop d8, f6. So now all white needs to do is bring a queen to h6 to give checkmate on g7. Queen to c5, queen f3. The queen is on the way to the desired square, h6. Knight d7. If black goes h5, white can immediately sacrifice material here. Takes on g6, f takes g6, knight e6, attacking the queen and the rook, but the queen of course is more important. Queen to c8 and queen d3, attacking the pawn on g6, and it is game over, as after king f7, white simply takes on d8 and comes in with the rook to e7, and black has to give up the queen to avoid immediate checkmate, but his king will still be under the attack and white wins. After knight d7, of course white could take the knight, but the position would be not as clear then as it is after the continuation of the attack with queen h6. Knight takes f6, that was the point behind knight d7 to get rid of these pawns, but here once again white can strike with bishop takes g6. Now if f takes g6, white goes knight e6, attacking queen and the rook on f8 as well as queen g7 checkmate, so black will need to give up the queen and be just in a hopeless situation. So you might say, wait, but what happens after h takes g6? And let me put this as a question to you guys. What should white play in this position now? If you want to stop the video. Knight e6 nonetheless, and I just find this beautiful, white is sacrificing more and more material to get through to the black king. F takes e6, queen takes g6 check, king h8, g takes f6, now threatening checkmate on g7, and the problem for black is there's no defense. If the bishop takes, then white simply plays rook g1 and black cannot stop the threats here. And after rook takes f6, white follows up with queen h5 check and rook g1, and it will be checkmate very soon as well. So I just want to show you some sample lines how the game could have continued after bishop e4 in this position. And now let's follow with the game, which was rook d3. Here black should go g6 once again, and the position becomes similar to what we have just seen earlier when black was able to establish this pawn structure, even though maybe this is a slightly better version for black as he's already more equipped to fight off the white attack. In the game black went bishop a8, queen h5, g6, queen h6, and obviously rook h3 is a strong threat now to checkmate black on h7, and black decided to cope with it in the wrong way. Black played bishop back to d8, but then he is just dead lost in the water. The only move here was once again this move f5 to open up the 7th rank for the rook to defend the pawn on h7. And here it seems the position is once again equal. White can bring a rook to e6, but black goes bishop d8, and the rook helps in the defense. White can sacrifice on g6, but that would be only a perpetual. And it seems though that white does not have anything better. Of course he can play other moves, but sooner or later black will come out of his shell, and then eventually the extra piece might be noticeable. So it seems that white should make a draw here at some point. After bishop d8 though, the situation was very different, as now white is not inclined to play rook h3, which could be answered by f5, but goes f5 himself, and that is a big problem for black. Black played f6. If black takes the pawn, then of course the knight can come into action as well, but after rook h3, f6, there's also the option of g6, and this is really trouble for black here. the threat to take on h7 simply. The knight can come into action. Too much to deal with. So in the game, black went f6, but there's no salvation here. White simply takes on g6, opens up more files, and black cannot defend. After rook f3, black resigned. Since there's the attack against the rook, and if the rook takes on f3, then there is rook e8 check, followed by checkmate on f8, and there's not much else black can do to stop that. Bishop f6 can be simply answered by knight e6, threatening the rook, and obviously this is not defendable anymore. So white won the game after rook f3, and it all started with this thematical piece sacrifice on knight on d5 in the 15th move right here, and this is something I want you to remember. So let's recap really quick what we took away from this game. White gave this knight here on d5, even though he was not even provoked, so with b4, as it is often the case, and as a result, the black piece became very cramped in the black position and had no activity. White had only one pawn for the piece, but retained this long-term attacking prospects against the black king and ultimately broke through. There were defensive options for black, but as they say, attacking is always easier than defending, and black did not find the right way, and ultimately the white attack was successful. So knight d5 definitely a move to watch out for, but you have to be careful with this move, because if it does not work out, then you might be also a piece down. So before you play it, you really want to check carefully whether you will get enough compensation and long-term possibilities against the black position, against the black king especially. I hope this was instructive and interesting, and I see you in the next lesson. Alright, there you go. I hope this gives you a better impression of what the course looks like, how it's structured, and if you're interested, I just want to point out again real quick, until December 16th, this Sunday, there's still 50% off, so instead of $60 you can get the course for $30. Alright, let me know if you have any questions about my course, and I hope you check it out. See you again very soon. Bye bye.